Hey everyone, I'm Scott Stokely, and I am here with Melodie. Well, I actually gave you a nickname. I hope it's okay. Melodie freaking Bailey. Is that okay?
That's perfectly okay. I like it.
Okay. I, I think you've earned the name at this point. Let me give you a quick introduction about you, and then we'll let you do the talking. Melodie is a professional disc golfer, FPO player, obviously, in the Pacific Northwest, but you have toured more than
Yes.
that, of course. And she is closing in on 100 wins. I asked how many of those were amateur, and the answer was none. I never played amateur, so you went straight to pro,
Yep.
getting close to 100 wins. And this was it. This year, your plans they weren't derailed, but you hit a speed bump that slowed down your you're reaching 100 wins.
Yeah,
That
it
was
was
this year,
actually last
or
year
was
in
last year?
October. Yeah.
Last year in October, and
Yeah.
you have you've all seen on the thumbnail, and but Melodie had diagnosed with brain cancer.
I actually was diagnosed with cancer of an unknown primary that went to my brain. So it's a bit different than a brain cancer, but it's still in the brain nonetheless. They just don't know where it came from.
Gotcha. Well, let's do this. Let's go back in time a little bit. We'll definitely get to that. I mean, that's the biggest thing going on in your life at the
hmm
moment. But let's talk about the fun stuff first. You started playing when?
I think I started playing in like 2006 or 2007. Whatever year it says I joined the PDGA, would be my first. I played like casually before then, but I jumped right into signing up as a pro and then just playing pro tournaments and then quickly from there on to touring.
What? Well, where was that? What was your first course?
First course I ever played was downriver in here in Spokane, Washington.
Okay, so you've been in Spokane the whole time then.
Yes.
For some reason, I thought you were out west. I guess that's maybe where I met you out west. But
Uh,
we met in 2015 in I thought we met in Oregon.
we could have met in Oregon because I before this happened I would travel to Oregon like almost every other weekend because it's only like a 6 hour drive to get to pretty much anywhere from here to Oregon.
Okay, I think it was. Well, maybe we didn't meet, but I remember you had your hair was dyed back then too.
Oh yeah, my hair's always been colored.
Your hair was colored. My hair was colored. I think we were the only two.
Yeah.
So maybe we didn't meet, but I certainly went, hey, there's one of us. Oh, us meaning me. So, so before then though, you started playing. When was your first tournament?
It was oh, I don't know. Was it the Downriver Open? No. That was my first win was at the Downriver Open. I think ooh, I'd have to look. I think my
All right.
first
So
win was at Downriver, but I don't remember what my first tournament was. I did not get any wins my first year playing. I can tell you that. So I probably forgot all the tournaments I played that first year.
wait a second. So you figured out how to forget the tournaments you've lost. I can only remember the tournaments I lost, practically. We'll have to talk off air about that skill of remembering the positive. But that is one of the most charming parts about you is your positivity. So which is going to be an important part of what we're talking about in a little bit. But you said your first win was downriver,
Yes. Yes, it was.
and what year was that?
Oh, maybe 2007. I
What
think
what do
that
you
was the
remember?
year that I signed up for the PDGA. I'd have to look at my stats to see if that's what it was, but
Yeah, I'm learning more and more. So the other goal then is to have so many wins you can't remember the
hmm
details from your first because it was 91 wins ago, right?
yeah, and it was also 2007, I think. So, all old now and stuff.
Okay, that I understand. You don't have to teach me how to be old. I got that part down pat. So let's not talk about the first tournament. What about your biggest wins? Like, what are the highlights?
Oh, geez. You're asking me a lot of questions I have to think about. Highlights of my wins. I think when I got last year was my first FP40 win in Las Vegas. Felt like a pretty big win to me.
I was there. This was last February.
Yeah, last year. Yeah. Obviously, I didn't get to go this year. But last year was my first year playing that tournament in FP40, and I felt like I had like a memorable win in it because I didn't shoot over par any of the rounds there, and it would have placed me very well amongst just FPO. But I was competing against some good FP40 players, and I had been new to the division, so even though sometimes people like to discount 40 or older divisions as less of a big deal, I still thought it was like one of my most memorable wins because it was my first one in that age bracket and I didn't shoot a single round over par. So I felt great about that.
Yeah, you can't dismiss age protected divisions because I mean, if you're not older, you don't realize this, but things change. Like there's no question your body. I mean, look, there are no MMA fighters, in their 40s, and as I say that, I could probably name 2 or 3, but
there's a few.
But they were all better when they were younger. They're still fighting now because they don't have money saved up, not because they're still great. But it's getting older matters. So competing against people, your peers, that's fantastic. So last summer, like this was in my mind the start of it. Just watching, because we've been friends, like we're golf friends, right? I mean, we we always hug, we say hi, we hug when we see each other, but we're part of the same golf family, and so we pay attention to what's happening in our family. And earlier last year, you had a bit of bad luck in Wisconsin.
Oh yeah. With the parsnip.
We'll start there because that's kind of like where it seemed like, what the hell's going on to the nicest person in the game, just about.
I'm pretty unlucky in general, though. I didn't know about the poison plants in Wisconsin not being from that part of the world. A thing called wild parsnip looks identical to a perfectly safe plant that grows everywhere here in Washington. So I went and walked through it. And then the sun got in contact with the oils and gave me chemical burns on probably 75% of my legs. Really bad.
Yeah, I remember seeing I saw the pictures.
And it was awful.
No, what was crazy about it was that usually, I'm sorry to say, most of the time when people post about an encounter with a poisonous plant, like they're kind of being big babies about it. It's like they show a little scratch or they show a couple bumps, and you look like you had chemical burns.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
That's what it is.
Yeah, it was gross too.
I love that you posted it because I still remember. I don't even know if you remember this, but I think the first post that I saw of you, basically you said, "My legs used to be so pretty. Look at them now." So I
used to get a lot of compliments on my legs, whether they were positive or, someone being inappropriate. I've kind of been known for my legs. They're strong, they're muscular, and they're tan, and they stand out. So I was always kind of proud of my legs until they looked like that. Well, it was really oozy and gross.
I know, but the nicest part is that you posted it.
When we were driving home, when it was my turn to drive, the bandage I had kept slipping, so I would have to reach across my legs and retie them. And I'm like, that's how you know you have a good best friend, when she's willing to cover your gross oozing legs.
Well, the strangest part, and this is basically like a statement on society in general, but like 4 years ago, I had a not to gross you out, but we're talking about oozing pussy legs, so you probably won't mind. But I had a toenail that like turned black and basically fell off of my big toe, and I did a 3-part series, like 3 photographs, 3 days in a row, and it was the 3 most commented on and emoted like post I'd ever made. And I'm like, I've won tournaments, I've done charity work, and it's like my toenail falling off was what people were most interested in. So it's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, people like the gross stuff, so we shouldn't be ashamed of it. Just share it.
well, for me now, it's all about like views and content. So if it's good content, like if I get hurt, as long as it's on video, I'm okay with it.
Right.
So how long did that last for though? Because I mean, it didn't go away quickly.
No, it lasted for several weeks before I was able to wear pants comfortably again. And then it took a few months before the scars went away.
That's crazy.
I had to keep them out of the sun. So when I would go play more disc golf, I'd have to wrap my legs in like scarves or bandages, which looked really goofy. But the more sun exposed to it, the worse it would get. And I was like, no, I'll just look goofy with some like knee wraps and some tape everywhere.
Actually, it's not goofy, it's quirky.
Yeah,
if a guy does it, it's goofy, but if a girl does it, it's cute and quirky. So you can
Yeah,
get
I'm
away
pretty
with
quirky
anything.
anyway.
Yeah, you can pull it off. So that got better, and now things are good again. And then what happened at the end of last year?
Well, it was building up to that. Like in Wisconsin, I was having some of the problems. I just wasn't recognizing it because I'm fairly ditzy, fairly clumsy. Sometimes I don't get enough sleep, whatever. So I wasn't really much paying attention to some of the things I was doing. But on the ride home, I'm driving my van, and I'm pretty sure what happened was I put it in neutral. Don't ask me why, but I put the van in neutral when we were on the highway, so I thought it broke down. So we coast off the highway, find this creepy little casino to park at, and they're like, oh yeah, you guys can stay here for the night until you figure out how to get towed. And I'm like freaking out, and I look at Sai and I'm like, did I put that in neutral? She's like, why would you do that? I'm like, I don't know, but I feel like I put it in neutral, because then when I started it back up, the van was working perfectly. We drove home the next day. So I think that was one of my first major incidents of me noticing that there was something wrong with my spatial awareness and orientation by putting my van in neutral when I was driving for no reason. But before that, it was also clumsiness, and my disc golf game went downhill significantly. I felt like I was like at the peak of my game, where I had mastered shots I had never had before. My left hand was reaching 300 feet. I was getting like a consistent sidearm going. My putting was great, and then all of a sudden I'm shooting 860 rated rounds. And I'm like, interesting. I must be just making wrong choices, is what I told myself. And by the time I got to US,
go ahead.
Sorry. By the time I had gotten to the Masters Championship, I had taken Sai with me, even though she wasn't old enough. She came to caddy with me, and I'm like, you need to be the brain for this, and I just need to be the player, because clearly something's wrong with my brain. Something's not right. Like I'm just not doing things. And we made a joke after watching the movie Luca. I don't know if you've seen it. I think it's a Pixar movie about this boy. He like lives in the water and goes on land. It's kind of like a Little Mermaid type situation, but his friend tells him
in Italy, right?
Yeah, and his friend tells him when he's afraid to do something or doubts himself, "Silencio, Bruno." So we kept saying that to me because we're calling the thing that was wrong in my head Bruno, and then it turned out that there really was a Bruno in there, and he was a tumor.
Well, how did that? I mean, did it just get worse? Was it painful, or did it just like what made you? What was the tipping point that made you go see somebody?
It got worse where I was becoming more clumsy, and I'm still having some of the problem now after the surgery, where when I use my left hand, it would seem a little foreign because the tumor's on the right side of my brain, so it affects my left side. So I was being a little more clumsy, and then I was having mild headaches. I was blowing off because we all have headaches, especially when we don't sleep good, and I wasn't sleeping well. But then I just felt really bad, and I apparently ran over like several curbs when I was driving and crushed my tailpipe. I don't remember doing any of these things. And my fiance's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just trying to be careful." He's like, why? You're in our parking lot. You're going like 1 mile an hour. So I'm like, whatever, I'm fine. I get in the apartment, spill my coffee everywhere. And then the next thing you know, I couldn't figure out how to change my pants because I had coffee on them. And I was really confused how pants worked. So I called my mom and I'm like, something's not right with me. If I can't change my pants, I need to go to the hospital. And then I started throwing up intensely in her car. I threw up on my mom. I threw up on my fiance. Everyone in the ER like moved away from me because all the throwing up. So there was a lot of symptoms by the time I was in the hospital that something was clearly wrong, and they instantly stuck me in a scan.
And then you got the results back that night, right?
Yeah, the neurologist came in. He said, so we found a couple of masses in your brain, and they're quite concerning. We're going to do surgery at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I was like, oh, wow.
So at this point, they hadn't even diagnosed what it was. They just know
No.
that they needed to get rid of the masses.
Yeah, because there was a lot of swelling.
Okay, so that was the immediate danger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my blood pressure was dropping so low it was undetectable. I couldn't like orientate myself. Like I guess my pupils weren't responding, so they said clearly something was really wrong, and they had to get whatever it was out right as soon as they got me stabilized.
Now I'm sorry if this is a dumb question. I plan on asking at least a few dumb questions. I hope that's okay.
That's all right. That's all right.
But with everything that was going on with your brain, were you able to process the fact that this is scary?
Yeah.
Or were you just disoriented and didn't really know?
Oh, I was definitely able to process it. It was scary. I called my dad, and I remember I wasn't able to sit up quite, but I remember kind of just like slumped over with my phone crying and telling him how scared I was. And then I called Cy because everyone knows me and her like normally attached at the hip, but she's on tour right now, so I'm all alone. But so I called her right away too and cried and told her, and she cried with me for a little bit, but I was terrified. It was when you hear about brain tumors, because it's happened with a bunch of celebrities lately. You hear someone having a brain tumor and then dying in 2 days. And that was my first thought, is that I'm going to die in 2 days. It felt like it. And then the thought of having your head cracked open and having surgery and not knowing what it is like, you think anything else besides your brain you can deal with. Like if someone tells you, we're going to take your foot off or you're going to die, you're going to be like, all right, take it, you can have that. But when they say that to your brain, you're like, what? No, I need that.
And go ahead.
I'm sorry, I calmed down after the next day, but it was just too much to process. But in the moment of them telling me, it was the most terrifying thing ever told to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, and they told you that night because they had to prep for the morning surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Did you sleep that night?
Oh no, not really. I was still in a lot of pain from the headache, and I was just tossing back and forth, and I kept looking at the clock. I'm like, is it time for surgery yet? Can we? Because when something's scary, I don't want to wait for it. I just want it to be over with. I was like,
Gotcha.
Please, let's do this and get it over with. And once they give you the good stuff, you fall asleep, and then you wake up like nothing ever happened.
So they put you out in the morning. Like what was involved in the surgery? It was the first surgery, I should say. What did they do?
Yeah, both of them were fairly similar, where they, of course, had to do the images of my brain, and then they put me to sleep, cut this nice hole in my scalp and in my skull, and took my little friend out. And they didn't think it was cancerous at first because it looked like a cyst, and it came out so easily. So I was told at first it's unlikely it was cancer. So I'm like, oh, good, that's a relief. But then I learned after pathology came back that it was in fact not cancer, or that it was cancer and not. They thought maybe it was a parasite. They thought I was exposed to something through foodborne illness. I was like, well, that's weird since I'm a vegetarian, but I wish that's what it was, because that would be done and over with and never worried about it again. But
so I told you I'm going to ask dumb questions.
Mm-hmm.
So your hair has always been such an important part of your identity. And
yes.
Now they're shaving a bald spot in your head.
Yeah.
Was that did that bother you at all, or is that so insignificant compared to the
I
surgery?
told him I said, shave my whole head if you need to. He's like, oh, well, we don't really need to. We'll just shave where where we're going to cut. I'm like, I don't care about my hair. I'm not opposed to wearing fake hair. I had extensions in like literally the day before I took them out because they were making my head hurt. So I'm like, I'll just wear fake hair. It looks good.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do with partially removed hair? Like you're going to have to cover it if you want to cover it.
Yeah, I got this cute little cancer cap thing that I wear. It has a little bow on the side. So when I want to wear my natural hair, because I have enough of it just to like frame my face, I'll put this little thing on and go out. If not, I got these nice variety of wigs. And normally I do pink, but I figured this was a good time to try different colors. So this is my first time being green.
When you wear the cap, do people recognize what the cap is?
No, because I have so much hair that still hangs out.
Okay. So it's not like
I have no. You can't see. Even if I wear it in a ponytail, I can still cover it. It just looks weird. Once I get the radiation, it will be more bald than it will be shaved, but it will still just be right in that one spot, which is fairly easy to cover.
When if they do it when it goes bald, are you going to rock the bald or are you going to do the wig?
I don't know. I'm going to do the wigs. I like the wigs. Wigs are fun.
Okay. Wigs are fun.
And I have a tiny head, so I'd probably look funny completely bald, but the radiation won't make me lose all my hair. It'll just be in the spot that they treat. So it'll be essentially right where my scar is, right where they shaved it. All the hair will fall out for about 3 months, and then it'll grow back. And
so
once they find out what
chemo.
I hopefully will be having chemo, but they need to figure out what I have before I can have chemo.
And that's what they're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I just got an appointment for, it's unfortunately not for 6 more weeks, but I'm going to see a specialist in cancer of unknown primary and a neuroendocrine cancer specialist, because those are the 2 things that they believe I have, is a neuroendocrine type cancer and obviously cancer of unknown primary, because I don't have cancer in any other part of my body. So they don't know what to give me. They don't know what to treat. They don't know what to monitor. So no chemo yet.
By the way, if anybody's listening who needs to go because you got to go to work or got to do something else, there's going to be a link. We'll talk about this more later, but a GoFundMe account, there's certainly things that you need to pay for that our disc golf community can help with. So look at the GoFundMe link in the description. We'll talk more about that. But so you got the initial, what they thought might be a cyst or a parasite removed, and they said, hey, you're probably okay. And then how long before they said that was not the case?
About 2 weeks when the pathology came back, because it takes a while. They did some initial microscope tests, but it wasn't registering as anything that they knew. So no one told me until 2 weeks later. I got a call from my neurosurgeon. He said, hey, I want to actually tell you this before you just go and check your my chart. It came back as a tumor, which is cancerous, and we need to set you up with an oncologist. So once I go to oncology, they start going over things with me, and they're like, it could be lung cancer. Let's do all these scans. Nothing's wrong with my lungs. So we did colonoscopy, endoscope in the tummy, breast MRI, mammograms, bladder scopes, PET scans, CT scans, everything, and they're coming up blank. So it was a weird situation being told that I have cancer, but then having a doctor saying, well, you have cancer, but you don't have cancer. But I clearly do, because it went to my brain not once, but twice.
Is it not possible that it's in the brain? Does that cancer not form in the brain? It has to form somewhere else and it manifests there? Or I'm confused.
Yeah, there's only a few types of brain cancer, and they ruled it out as being one of those. When they did molecular testing, it came back as a 90% chance of being neuroendocrine of the lung. And lung cancer spreads very easily to the brain. That's one of the most common cancers that goes to the brain. But with them not finding anything in my lungs, they're like, well, where is it? What is it? But because just getting the
Gotcha.
secondary wasn't enough information. That's why I'm hoping when I see the specialist next month that they could maybe do more or normal, because I have such a rare type of cancer that I'm probably the only person in this country who's in my exact situation of having a 2-time brain metastasis with an unknown primary. There's a lot of people who have unknown primaries and a few thousand people who have neuroendocrine of the lung, but only like 2,000 people a year get diagnosed with that. And the groups that I've joined on Facebook, no one has been exactly like me. So even doctors are like, we don't, never even heard of anyone exactly like you, so we don't know what to do with you other than treat what we know you have, which is in the brain. So
Yeah, it's probably not surprising. I mean, you've always been unique.
yeah.
So
I know, why can't I get so lucky to win the lotto? I get so lucky to get one of the rarest forms of cancer in one of the rarest ways. And they say there's nothing I did do or didn't do to get it. It's not genetic. It's nothing I was exposed to. It had nothing to
it's
do with
random.
lifestyle choices. It's just a terrible luck of the draw.
So you got so then okay, you had the first surgery, then the
Mm-hmm.
pathology came back, they said it's cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Did they immediately think they're going to have to go back in, or were they testing and they found that they didn't get it all?
So no, once I had the surgery, I did gamma knife radiation, which is a very effective targeted radiation for brain cancer and brain tumors. And that's a one-time, usually one and done. And it's supposed to have like a 90-some% chance of no reoccurrence within the first year. But since they said they didn't know exactly where mine's coming from or what it is, I might have a reoccurrence sooner than what they would typically expect. So they had me on a schedule of getting a brain scan every 3 months. And the first couple showed up fine. And then I started having seizures just out of nowhere. I was just on the phone with one of my friends one day, and my arm was like moving uncontrollably. My abs were like clenching really hard, and I felt really confused. So I had to go to the emergency room, and they did a MRI, and they found that there was an increase of the area that they were monitoring. So then we put me on another, all right, we'll put you on steroids and seizure medication, come back in 6 weeks. I made it to the day before my appointment where I had to go back to the hospital from headaches and feeling uncoordinated and not feeling well again. And then they said the same thing, we're doing surgery tomorrow. But at that point, they weren't sure what quite was going on, because they thought, based off the scans before, that it was a thing called radiation necrosis, where the radiation killed off some of my good brain cells instead of just killing off the cancer cells, which turned out the larger area they removed was necrosis, and then the smaller area, which was more near the top, was a tumor reoccurrence. So I had both. So it was like double
But
bad news.
but you told double bad news, but you told me that the second surgery they feel went well.
Oh yeah, they feel both surgeries went well. I am doing very well for someone who's had 2 brain surgeries, because it's only been what, 2.5 weeks. My surgery was on the 25th. I don't know what today is, like the 9th or something. But because the tumors were in my motor function and spatial awareness side of my brain, I was told to expect to not be able to use or move my left side at all after surgery. But it works.
Yeah, you said that you woke up and that's the first thing you did is moved your left arm, right?
Yeah, I moved my left arm and my left leg. I was still all groggy, and I'm like, ah, yeah,
So
okay, it works. I'm fine.
what is the what's the current prognosis then? Like what are they saying currently?
No one's given me a prognosis. No one's told me how long I'm expected to live or how well I'm expected to recover, because they just don't know. But I expect to recover, and I expect to live to 122. So that's what's going to happen.
122. Is that the record?
122. No, it's not. That's just how long I want to live for.
Okay. Yeah, you told me you have no doubts that you're going to survive.
Yeah, no doubts. It
Well,
sounds
I mean,
harder to
you're
give up.
make yeah. Well, you said you're unique, so maybe that's another piece of your uniqueness.
Yeah, they
I
tend to
mean,
think so because
you don't want to die like everybody else that has two brain tumors. You want to be unique.
yeah, I want to live through it and live a really long time. And then when I'm 122 and still playing disc golf, they could be like, remember back when she was 40 and she had the brain surgeries, and
Yeah,
look at her now, 122, still playing disc golf.
yeah, right. Well, I'm I'm in the process of trying to uh, beat Father Time as well, so we can do it together. So your attitude is very positive. Is that is that just Melodie Bailey being Melodie Bailey, or is that you forcing yourself to be positive because it's hard not to be? I mean, is it natural for you, or is this something that you have to kick yourself and tell your brain to shut up when it gets
It's
negative?
fairly natural for me. I tend to not be a negative person. I've had a fairly unique, rough life leading up till now. So when bad things happen to me, I just kind of roll with the punches. It's like, oh, of course, moving on. Not to get into too much personal details about my past, but I was not in the best situation. I got married too young to an alcoholic who did not treat me nice in any form of the way. And that lasted for a few years. And then I rebuilt my life and decided to make it positive and happy and do what I can to not let anyone else ruin it or any other situation ruin it. And I don't want to sit around being sad. Of course, I have my moments where I get the, why does this happen to me? I live so healthy. I don't look, I look like half my age. I work out. I do everything right. I don't drink. I don't smoke, and get depressed, especially seeing other people get sad over me. That's the hardest part, is seeing someone else feel upset for what I'm going through. But as long as I keep it positive that I'm not going to give up, I can stay in that attitude. It seems like it would be harder for me to drop that than it would be for me to keep it. Like, I can't just say I'm going to give up and be miserable, or I'm not going to seek treatment, because I know how much having a positive mindset does actually help you heal and get through something. Like like when the doctor told me, when I saw him yesterday, he reiterated that I could have woken up with no use in my left side. And I told him, I'm like, yeah, I said that wasn't going to happen. And he looked at me. I was like, you told me that twice, and I told you both times that wasn't going to happen. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I wasn't even a little bit scared that I was going to wake up with no use in my left side, because I knew that I was going to be fine. It's going to be
Yeah,
some hard times, but I'll still be fine.
no, I believe you. I 100% believe you, and I do think it does. It does make a difference. Our brains are freaking amazing.
Hmm.
I mean, our brains are our brains can be assholes to us at times as well,
Yeah.
but they're also not assholes sometimes too. Like they can be our best friends. You have a fiance.
Yes.
Is this? I mean, that's. I want to. I almost said this is what bad timing for this, but that would imply that there's good timing. That would
Yeah.
be another stupid question on my part, but it does seem like that's the time of your life when this is not supposed to happen.
Yeah, we were supposed to get married this summer. I wanted to get married on the Oregon coast on the beach.
Are
So
you going to?
obviously, we're still going to get married probably sometime this summer, just probably not in Oregon because of the difficulty of getting there and everything going on. And again, we don't know what my treatment's going to entail. So we're kind of just one day at a time. If we have to, we'll just go, over to Idaho and get married at Coeur d'Alene Lake or something. I just want to get married at the water.
It's funny you say Oregon coast because my girlfriend and I talk about our favorite places in the U.S. and mine is southern Utah, but hers is the Oregon coast. You've been to the
Yeah,
Goonies house?
no, That'd be
Wait,
cool.
you haven't
That's
been
one
to
of
the
our
Goonies
favorite
house?
movies. No.
Oh my God. Okay, so when you go to the Oregon coast to get married, I'm assuming you're going to go to the Oregon coast to get married still. When you go, the people that own the Goonies house are so cool that they actually have a sign out front, because there's a line of cars parked there, people taking pictures of it. You can Google it. The people that own the house are so cool. They actually say, yes, you have permission to come into our front yard to take a picture. Stay off the neighbor's yard.
Nice.
But they give you permission to take a picture. I think we went all the way to the front porch, though, because I don't know, we just did. But so when you go to the Oregon coast to get married, go to the Goonies house, and please put me on your registry. I won't make it. Here's my tip for you. All the people, all your friends are on the disc golf world that can't make it, and you know they can't make it, invite them all to the wedding. Because they can't make it, but then they'll feel guilty and buy something off your registry. You think I'm joking? I told Jeremy Colling to put me on. I told him to put me on his wedding list. I said, I'm not coming to your wedding, but I'll buy you something. So put me on your registry list along with all your other friends around the world. What's the response been like from, speaking of friends around the world? I mean, what's the response been like from the community?
It's been fantastic. I've had an overwhelmingly positive response from the community, in many unexpected ways. I've had obviously people reach out to me, telling me that me sharing my story has helped them, even though they're going through something different. Just knowing that someone's going through something harder or potentially worse than that they're going through, and is so willing to like share and not be ashamed, it makes other people feel better. So that actually makes me feel better, because I'm the kind of person who would rather take the pain than someone else have it. So if me sharing my story could make someone else feel better for what they're going through, or give them hope that they're going through, maybe it's cancer or maybe some other injury, that if I can overcome this, then they can as well, because the odds are most certainly stacked against me, but I'm not going to let them be. I'm going to willpower through it. I've had great responses with financial help too. I've had set up the GoFundMe's, because when it first happened, it was so unexpected. And this, all of a sudden, I'm not working. I have no income. And I'm like, oh gosh, what am I doing here? And didn't know what my costs were going to entail. I just had to do a $3,000 scan, which is stupid. $3,000 for one scan that I'm probably going to have to do multiple times. But everyone came together in support to help me get that paid for. I've had a lot of people send me discs and stuff to like that I can auction or sell or put in like mystery boxes, and I feel like there's a lot of love in the community that I've received that, like, you think you might become irrelevant when you're like sick or out of the scene and people don't care anymore, but I found that's not necessarily true. Like, yeah, a lot of the newer people may not know about me because I've kind of been sidelined since last year, but I've gotten a lot of love from the community. That means more than anything to me.
Well, for sure, you're Melodie freaking Bailey. And by the way, I only use the word freaking because I don't want to get demonetized on YouTube.
Right.
So when I say Melodie freaking Bailey, I'm not thinking in my head the word freaking. But it's an all ages show. So you have a GoFundMe set up.
Mm-hmm.
There's endless things you need, and I suspect there's things that you don't know that you're going to need
Yeah.
So I will put a link in the description, and people can donate and support you that way. Is there anything else you want to share? By the way, the worst podcast questions are when people give you an open-ended question. Those are the toughest ones. So apologies, but I wanted to give you the chance to, if there's anything you wanted to say.
Other than I, feel very unlucky that this happened to me, I feel very lucky that so many people care about me and everyone watching this. Thank you. This means love if you didn't know it.
Okay.
Love
well,
you.
I love you. We love you. The community loves you, and I'm not the slightest bit concerned for you. I
Yeah,
have
don't.
no doubts. And by the way, I'm almost never wrong. So I'm sure you're going to be okay. And I'm pretty much always right. So you can
Okay,
put that in the bank.
I will.
And get married on the Oregon coast this summer. Send me an invitation. Everybody
All right.
watching, please, if you want to support one of the just really good people out there, Melodie she's one of the good ones. Uh, GoFundMe account in the description. And thank you for letting me share your story with everybody. I'll be
Yeah,
thinking of
absolutely.
you. And like I said, I'll look for that invitation.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone.